There are stories that live in the shadows, whispers from beyond, encounters we cannot explain. This is Beyond the Veil, where the unknown is never far away.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond the Veil. I'm Brett Rogers and as always I'm joined by fellow Seeker of the Strange, Lee Wine.
Good evening.
And in tonight's episode we're venturing into one of the most chilling and modern legends to emerge from the world of the paranormal, the Black-Eyed Children. They look ordinary enough at first glance, pale-faced, quiet, lost perhaps, but it's only when you meet their gaze that you realise something isn't right. Those eyes, jet black, bottomless, and utterly devoid of life. Who or what are these mysterious children said to appear at people's doors in the dead of night, asking to be let in? Are they spirits, demons, harbingers of doom, or something far stranger that walks between our world and theirs? Tonight, Lee is taking us on a journey beyond the veil to understand the history and origins of this eerie phenomenon, from its first reported encounters to the stories that have spread far across the globe. And on this episode, we are actually joined by a special guest, and I actually mean it this time because it's not a prank like that stupid Halloween special one that I did. We're actually joined by our friend Kat.
Good evening.
And she actually has a truly unnerving tale to share, a story of a camping trip that took a dark and unforgettable turn, as we believe she may have indeed been approached by the Black-Eyed Children. But you didn't actually know that when you told us that story, did you?
No, that's right. No, until I shared that story with our group of friends, I'd never thought about it in that sort of way, but after talking about it and obviously research after and looking at other encounters, who knows, it could have been, it's very fitting.
Well, it is, yeah. I mean, but that was
But it was quite scary at the time.
It was the first thing we said though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think you actually said it first, but I had already thought it.
So these stories and encounters have fascinated me and actually always scared me. I think, like us, when you watch a lot of horror movies, it doesn't happen that often. You become a bit desensitized where you think, actually, I'm a bit scared now. And this phenomenon is something that still makes me, some nights I'm sat up late, I'll think about the Black-Eyed Kids and I'll almost run up to bed praying that I don't hear a knock on the door. And it's something that still holds that power of being able to scare me.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So when Kat was telling her story, I immediately recognised it as, wow, that sounds like one of the Black-Eyed Kids encounters.
Yeah.
And I think that was when you probably first came across it. I mean, you may have heard of the Black-Eyed Kids, Kat, but I don't think you applied it to your own story.
I've heard of them in passing when people talk about things. You know, you all sit around and tell campfire stories and ghost stories, don't you, and do anything, and we talk about them as a group of friends and quite often, but I've just never really put the two and two together for that experience.
Exactly.
And the more I think about it, the more it seems likely. Do you know what I mean? Whether you believe or not, and that's the discussion to have, isn't it? And you know, the more I think about it, the more I believe it was.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you told it, it was just like, that sounds like a classic case of the Black-Eyed Children. But obviously we won't go into more of that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But in the meantime, Lee, Kat, are you ready to begin?
Indeed.
Wherever you are, turn the lights down low or off if you dare. Grab a drink, get comfortable, put on some headphones and settle into the darkness and prepare to step once again beyond the veil.
So in his introduction, Brett has touched on referring to these encounters as a legend, and it often is seen as a legend. I think that's because the stories first came about after being told on the internet, and they developed a bit of an urban legend type feel. But I believe that there's such a range of encounters that it's something more than that. I just think the rise of the internet made it easier to share such stories, and then they become part of the common sort of experience.
Yeah.
So Brett has touched on it, but the simplest description comes from the name of these encounters themselves. Some people call them black-eyed children, some people call them black-eyed kids. But basically, these are children between 6 and 16 years old, and they have completely black eyes. It's not just dark irises. It's completely black, solid black. Even in some descriptions, that it reflects light back, the so deeply jet black. People who encounter these kids describe feeling an overwhelming sense of dread or fear, even before noticing the eyes. That's something that comes later, and it makes it even worse. These kids do seem to give off a eerie or an evil vibe that sets off everybody's primitive alarms, that voice in the background telling you to get away from them. They typically have very pale skin. Sometimes the skin can appear chalky or waxy, or makes them look like they're sick. The clothing can often seem a bit odd, out of place, old-fashioned. Sometimes it's it's just a case that the clothing's a bit drab. So it's not, you don't encounter a child in Victorian clothing, but it'll often just be very dark jeans, a dark hoodie, and something that just doesn't look quite right about the clothing.
I've heard like some cases where the black hoodies with the black hoods is quite a common one, but some people, I've read that some people have seen them dressed in, because you said there about Victorian clothing, where it looks old, where they may be wearing like shirts and maybe braces and things like that, where, so maybe not quite Victorian, but it looks old.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't look.
Often people describe it as some sort of entity trying to fit in.
Yeah. Like trying to mimic.
Looking like it thinks it should look.
Yeah.
And that adds to this feeling of dread, and again, just triggering those primitive warnings that you sometimes get in these situations. They usually ask for something. And at first they can appear as just children in need of help. And often people think they've just come to the wrong house by mistake, or the wrong car, or the wrong tent. So they'll ask, often it's, can we use your phone? But it's always to try and get in. Again, whether that's your house, which is the most common, but also it could be a car. But they want to come in, and like the old vampire tales, they can't seem to come in unless you grant them permission. The detail that probably creeps me out the most is the fact that they don't just ask to be let in, they start to insist. So when you show a hesitation or outrightly say no, they'll tend to just repeat the same things almost in a monotone fashion. Some people have even reported feeling like they're attempting to be hypnotized.
Yeah.
And they will just keep repeating, let us in, let us in, let us in. It'll get louder, sometimes more insistent. Never really aggressive, but just increasing in volume and intensity. Everything in people's guts who experience these kids, it just says, do not let them in. And, most of us would see a child as vulnerable. And if anything, they're going to be the people who you do let into your house if you think that they're in need. And that adds to that feeling that this might be some sort of entity trying to fool people into gaining access to their houses. The kids do appear vulnerable or harmless, but again, the feeling is that there's something deeply, deeply wrong. Historically, the phenomenon's pretty new in paranormal lore, in terms of, when you look at other things that are almost ancient and that have been around as long as people have been telling stories. This is quite a new thing. And the earliest known modern account, and that put the black-eyed kids on the map, occurred in 1996. It was a Texas reporter named Brian Bethel who wrote about an encounter he had in a place called Abilene in Texas. He was sitting in his car at night. He was writing a check. to drop a bill payment box. Suddenly, two young boys around 9 to 12 years old approached his car window. They said they wanted a ride, supposedly to get back home and get money to go see a movie. Brian Bethel felt a real inexplicable feeling of panic. As the boys spoke, he found himself almost hypnotised and almost reaching to unlock his car, until he realised that these boys' eyes were entirely black. No pupil, no iris, jet black. It jolted him awake with fear, and he sped off and described that his heart was still pounding sometime after the encounter. Bethel posted the story on a mailing list for ghost enthusiasts, and it spread like wildfire. It became the sort of a template for these encounters with black-eyed kids. Obviously, he never let the kids into the car, and nothing overtly supernatural happened beyond the terrifying interaction. But he was convinced that it was a genuine paranormal experience. He even wrote a follow-up article years later asserting that it was not a hoax. Interestingly, he mentioned that another person had a similar encounter in Portland, Oregon, and that occurred around the same time, which suggests that these stories were bubbling up in multiple places by the late 90s. Again, I think that's a case of there was a forum, being the internet, being these various paranormal forums, paranormal interest groups. I think it was purely a way of getting these experiences out there.
Like maybe people's finally had a platform to be able to share these stories.
Yeah. And also, if it just happened to you, you didn't realise this had happened to anybody else, there's always, in every paranormal encounter, that terror that people just won't believe you. And until people start to see stories shared that are similar to yours, I imagine Brian Bethel saw that other encounter and thought, thank God, somebody else has witnessed this.
I think it's a little bit like you're seeing like a rise of interest in like the Appalachians in America.
Yeah.
And that's like really starting to like pick up traction where people are talking about it more and more. Like it's always been a subject, but it seems like now people are talking about that more than ever, about some of the things people see in the Appalachian mountains and forestry
absolutely.
and everything. So yeah, again, it's as soon as you give something a platform where people can talk about it, it just becomes more and more in your face about it, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. By the sort of 2010s, there was an awful lot of reports online. The research for this evening's episode wasn't that difficult because there were so many stories. Some of them appear in purposely fictional blogs and posts, and it does make for a terrifying story, but an equally large amount appear in true encounter sort of forums.
I bet creepypasta's full of it.
Exactly. It might have been, if I remember rightly, that was my first experience of hearing about black-eyed kids was through a fictional story, not a real-life account. And then I later realised that people had reported this as a true experience, and that just really made it terrifying for me.
A lot of fictional stories are based on some sort of truth or encounter or experience somebody's had that, aren't they? So,
yeah, definitely.
When we were discussing urban legends, that was the same case, isn't it? They're always based on some element, at least, of truth.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that Halloween special we did, you know, that was the point of those stories, was like, well, what's the truth in it then? Where's that come from? You know, and it's always quite interesting that it stems from something sometimes really small, but then sometimes it's practically a carbon copy of it.
Yeah. So whilst all of these stories and encounters really sort of took off in the US, it certainly didn't stay there. There are stories from all over the world now, different cultures, different languages, different people, and these experiences, encounters with the black-eyed kids seem to pop up everywhere, including here in the UK. One of the most famous supposed black-eyed kid phenomena is actually here in England, which we'll discuss a bit later. Before I want to go on to that, I just want to note some of the theories around what actually these black-eyed kids are. Because if the stories are true, what on earth are they? So the theories run a bit of a gamut. Some of the popular ideas include ghosts or spirits. Perhaps they're ghosts of children who've died tragically. There's a big theory from the one we're going to discuss in the UK, which is at Cannock Chase, where we'll see that a black-eyed child is actually thought to be the spirit of a murdered child. Ghost proponents of this theory say that the kids might be souls that can't rest, and they appear with black eyes as a sign of their unrest or residual trauma. Demons or vampiric entities, the whole needing permission to come in does scream of vampire tales. Demonic or evil entities masquerading as kids to prey on our sympathies, another angle. And that's one that strikes me, and probably of the theories that are out there, that's the one I'd be most likely to believe. The thing with the clothes, the way they speak, and the jet black eyes. It's always said that eyes are a window to the soul. And also, there they are, jet black.
And also, demons often want permission as well, though, don't they?
Yes.
Which is when people who are going through demonic possession, or supposedly going through demonic possession, is that it's like they're having the will destroyed, so that eventually they just give up, don't they? And then they let it in, because it's almost like they just want their suffering to end.
Yeah.
And then they let the demon in. So, like, demons are also based around a lot of permission as well, aren't they?
Yeah. And there is that sort of feel to these encounters. It's not just vampires that need permission, as you say, Brett. It's sometimes demons not only feed on fear, which is what these kids sort of produce in anybody that meets them, but it's also that route to possession. If you say, "Okay, kids, in you come," what would they possess you? Is that the end game? There's a lot of discussions that these kids might be alien or extraterrestrial in nature. They often go hand in hand with some encounters of men in black. So some of the encounters of men in black, if people are familiar, will often say that they just look not quite right. They're talking quite a monotone fashion. So there's some crossover between the black-eyed kids and the men in black as well. The weird speech patterns does sort of imply that the children aren't human at all, but in fact, either outright aliens or alien hybrids. The theory is that they look just human enough to get close to us, but those do give away the otherworldly origin. And then, of course, there's the angle that it may just be urban legend and a bit of mass hysteria. So, people see the stories and want to jump on it, and then it does eventually become that urban legend type thing. Also, as well, you get a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, the fictional stories coming through, which then builds this into being an urban legend rather than a true legend. And that's partly as well why I always found it interesting with your story, Kat, is because this wasn't the angle that you ever looked at from. So it almost discounts that theory. I know it's just based on your case, but it almost discounts that theory for me that it's urban legend or just some sort of mass hysteria, people wanting attention or any such things.
That'll always be the thing that gets me about that story when you shared it with us, was that you never told us that story going, "Oh, I had an encounter with the black-eyed children." You never said that. Like it was just a case of, "Oh, something real weird happened to us when we were camping," and you just told us, and it was just like, holy shit, and you was like, oh my god.
It's a perspective, isn't it, when you tell it, and like I'd never thought of it in the way that I do now.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it was already a creepy thing that happened, but then now when you think what the possibilities are, it's like, oh my god. Yeah.
Skeptics point out that there's no images or videos of these encounters. So people, may have had CCTV or something like that, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
There was one report of somebody who did have CCTV. It was before the days of the Ring doorbell, which I'll touch on in a minute. But he did have CCTV pointing at his sort of front door. And when he looked back at it, there was no one there, and he was just talking to something invisible. but he had experienced it in full, and it had terrified him, and that's why he went back and looked.
That part of somebody, like, he's kind of saying, like, what are they, where did they originate from? Is it demonic? Is it spiritual? Is it, there's so many different theories. But if you think about that, like, if on a camera and it's blank, that's often happens when it's like spiritual, demonic, and you're seeing something, it's like they've got inside your head.
Yeah.
And they're portraying what you're visualizing there, but to anybody else, you look a bit insane because you're talking to yourself on the camera, there's nothing there. But if they are of that demonic or spiritual realm, entity, whatever you want to call it, is that part of their strength and their being, whatever that is,
that they can just talk. Yeah, that's also a good thing, isn't it? It's like, well, a good point, because okay, is it a case of you're not actually seeing, they're not actually physically there, or are they just able to bypass any video recording device?
Well, it's part of that demonic possession. If we go with that theory down that channel for a second, that they want to frighten you, beat you down until you literally give in and you let them take over your body, your soul, and everything else. Is that the starting point of that opportunity for them to get inside your head, and then for you to be like, "Yeah, come in, it's great."
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's a really good point you mentioned that, because I had also thought that as well. Because we talked a little bit about how things like YouTube really end up being a breeding ground for these sorts of stories, and now because of the rise of AI and everything, that there's no end of these produced videos of sightings of paranormal and supernatural creatures that they're everywhere now. And then even just getting rid of the AI one and AI generated ones, all the numerous hoaxes that people make, where like there's just videos of cryptids and skinwalkers and Bigfoot, and that one's been going on for freaking years and years and years, the whole Bigfoot thing. No one can ever get a good picture of Bigfoot. Yeah. But the one thing that is really strange to me is that no one has ever done a hoax, even a hoax, of black-eyed, as far as I can tell anyway, of having black-eyed children at the door.
That's a really good point, and throughout my research, I've not really come across that.
I don't think
there's the fictional stories, but they're not purporting to be anything other than fictional stories. So that doesn't discount anything. It just adds to the.
I was just saying, does that make it a bit more sinister and darker because there isn't that visual evidence? It's just people telling a story.
And it would be really
to me,
easy
that makes it more scary, because nowadays, like with AI and cameras, or even say nowadays and before, like with the whole Bigfoot thing, it's so easy to dismiss it, isn't it? You see an image and it's like, somebody running around in a Bigfoot suit. Whereas if there isn't any visual evidence in that sort of way, to me that makes it a little bit more real, a bit more scary, because there isn't anything other than what
and the ease
you're
of
feeling and experiencing.
It's the complete opposite, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
the
makes it
ease
even
these
weirder.
days of getting jet black contact lenses. People use them as fancy dress now. When these things first started being reported, it was actually incredibly expensive to buy anything like that. So people, much less children, wouldn't have been able to afford to do it as just some sort of hoax that they don't get anything out of. Whereas
really
these days it would be easier to do that. It's difficult to make out. These encounters are often in the dark. Quite a few will be have been reported as being just after sunset, but it's always dark. These tend not to happen in daylight, broad daylight. So people don't always notice the black eyes immediately or at all. It's just they get these terrible feelings, and then they notice the black eyes as almost an added extra that just adds to the fear of the whole encounter. And I think that's why this story, legend, urban legend, if that's what you believe it is, or these encounters really have sort of staying power. It taps into the primal fear of children supposed to be vulnerable and in need of help. And then these things, whatever they are, use that feeling against us. And the idea that something inhuman's hiding behind the face of a child is I just think it's nightmare fuel. And I think that's why this particular sort of story scares me. even still.
Yeah.
It's taken seriously enough that even some UK tabloids have covered it. In September 2014, the UK tabloid, very highbrow, the Daily Star, ran 3 front page stories in 1 week about black-eyed children, claiming sightings. So three different experiences in 1 week. They claimed that in 2014, for whatever reason, that there was a shock rise in encounters with the black-eyed kids around the world. This was around the time there was a supposedly haunted pub in Staffordshire was being discussed, and I think the pub was up for sale and had a history of ghost sightings, including the ghost of a black-eyed child. So the media did hype it up somewhat, but I think it was quite telling that there was 3 stories of the week. That's quite a lot.
Yeah.
And it started to make people ask, wait a minute, is this real? So I guess people had come across some stories of this, but they presumed that these were fictional. For a lot of people from the UK, it might have been the first time hearing about the black-eyed kids. Daily Star's coverage was quite sensational, as we'd expect, but it was based on local reports of encounters. So that brings us to the vast majority of the UK encounters are centred around an infamous place called Cannock Chase. So Cannock Chase, if you live in the UK and follow any paranormal sort of news, you've probably heard of this place. For people who haven't, it's a sort of sprawling forest and heathland area in Staffordshire, not too far from Birmingham. There's lots of walking trails, campsites. It's an area of really outstanding natural beauty, but it does have quite a spooky reputation by night. Locals will say that it's a magnet for ghost stories, cryptid sightings, even werewolves, UFOs. There's even its own cryptid of a half-man, half-pig legend doing the rounds in Cannock Chase. And
That's great.
relevant to us for this evening, black-eyed children sightings. So the black-eyed child of Cannock Chase is probably the most famous British case. The sightings date right back to the early 80s, which again gives weight to what I was saying, that these stories have come into the mainstream because of the communication on the internet. So these encounters have been reported well before we were all up on the internet, looking at forums. Apparently in 1982, a local woman saw a young girl wandering in the woods. When the child looked at her, the girl's eyes were completely black. That was one of the first reports. Over the years, a number of people claim to have seen a similar apparition. A ghost of a girl with jet black eyes. And contrary to what I've just said, she often appeared in daylight, and she'd sometimes be heard giggling or crying in the forest. Many people believe this particular black-eyed child isn't the same as the menacing ones from the more American stories, but it's rather just a traditional ghost. Possibly it was one of the children who were tragically murdered in the area back in the 1960s. This is pretty dark history, but in the early 60s, a man named Raymond Morris abducted and killed 3 young girls around the Cannock Chase area. It was a huge criminal case, as you'd imagine. And some locals think that the black-eyed child is a restless spirit of one of those victims. So that's quite a sad take on the whole thing. But again, not quite the same as these knocks at the door and to see, tangible children rather than ghostly apparitions. Others say that the ghost of this child might cover her eyes or ask for help because she's recreating what happened to her, which I also think is a bit sad. It's a very tragic theory, and if you think about it, it makes the black-eyed kid more of a figure of pity than a frightening one, whereas almost all of the rest of the cases I've come across are terrifying rather than something to pity.
Yeah.
I suppose encountering any ghostly child with black eyes or not is terrifying. Whether or not you would feel sorry for their backstory, it would still be pretty scary. things calmed down a bit in Cannock Chase in terms of the black-eyed ghost child. And then in 2014, it reappeared, and it was in the news in a big way, like we've mentioned. Several different people reported encounters. One particularly creepy account was a mother who was out in the woods with her daughter. They heard what sounded like a little girl screaming, and she was shouting for help somewhere among the trees. So they went running into the forest to try and locate the child, thinking it was maybe a lost or injured child. What happened next is like something out of a horror movie. The woman said she suddenly noticed a girl standing right behind her. It was a young girl of about 10 years old, standing silently with her hands over her eyes, almost like she was playing hide and seek. The mother, startled, asked if the girl was okay and if she had been the one screaming. The child lowered her hands and revealed that her eyes were solid black. The mother grabbed her own daughter in terror. As she blinked or momentarily looked away, the black-eyed girl vanished completely with no trace of her left. And this was in broad daylight, mind you.
There's a reason you don't go walking in the woods, you see. Day or night.
Yeah, stay away from
Stay
the
away from the
fucking
woods.
That actually gave me a little bit of goosies on the little face there.
Slightly more highbrow than the Daily Star, this was covered by ITV News and local newspapers as well at the time. It then prompted a paranormal investigator named Lee Brickley to dig a little bit deeper. He's kind of the local resident expert on Cannock Chase and all of its paranormal goings-on. He's written several books and runs a blog about all of the weird happenings around the place. He says that his own aunt was one of the first people to report a sighting back in the 80s, and that's what prompted his interest to go looking for the black-eyed child himself after the 2014 reports. He claims that eventually he did have his own encounter a few years later. He claims that in April 2018, he was out in the Birches Valley area of Cannock Chase, which was one of the reported hotspots, and he saw what he describes as the black-eyed girl. According to him, she appeared about 100 metres ahead, on a trail, stared at him for about 30 seconds, and then completely vanished without a trace, sort of in keeping with the lady's story. He didn't manage to get a photo or anything, but he was absolutely convinced that he'd finally seen her. So one of the most scary, I think, Cannock Chase encounters happened in 2021, and that involved a pair of teenagers who were camping illegally in a forest. The story made the local news because it was so dramatic, and it just so happens it's rather similar to the story Kat's going to tell us shortly. We've been really excited to have you on the podcast because your story was told on the night that we were staying in the cottage, really where this podcast, or the idea for this podcast was born. And it was one of the stories of the night where I went to bed praying that there was not going to be any knocks on the door.
But you had that door in your room as well, didn't you?
That led directly to the outside.
Yeah, that's it. You had
double door, didn't you?
Yes.
In your room, yeah.
Yeah, there was that additional door, wasn't there?
You know, our other friend were all right. We were tucked in at the back together.
Yeah, me and Charlotte were up in the top, up in the rafters.
Yeah, I was there. Black-eyed kid bit.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd have just thrown you to him as well. We'd be like, take him, it's fine.
Yeah, you'd have always been the first one to go anyway.
So, as your story involves camping, I thought now would be a good time to hand over to you and let you tell your story.
Tell my tale. So like we kind of touched on before, I never told this story for the first time, which was only in June of this year, just
May, because it was for my
time.
birthday, wasn't it?
It was. And I never thought of it as one of these kind of scary tales. It was just a weird thing that happened camping with the family. Just to put a bit of context and a bit of background story, because we all love a story. My dad will be proud of me for embellishing it a little bit in terms of filling in the gaps. It was a family camping trip. There was quite a lot of us that went, and post-COVID, when we was all allowed to kind of engage with other human beings outside of your immediate family circle, camping was the only kind of holiday that we could all go on. Wasn't the first camping rodeo. I think it was the second one that we'd all done. And there's like 20 of us, adults, kids. We went to, I won't name the campsite or the area, but I will tell you it was in Yorkshire, and it was quite a big campsite, and it was within walking distance of a stately home.
Lee's back garden.
And as most British camping trips, the weather was a bit crap. But we'd made the most of it. We'd had a barbecue, the kids had toasted marshmallows, all of that. Got quite late. Our children are a little bit older, but the rest of the family's kids are a little bit younger, so just kind of getting them settled for bed. So you're talking dusk time into the early settled of the darkness, trying to get our children down to sleep. So at the time, my daughter would have been about 11, and my son would have been 7. So not little is, but old enough. We're just getting them settled down, zipped in the tent. It's dark enough in the tent to have your light on, your camping lights. No head torches in this tent though. That's a bit too much.
Don't look at me.
I don't want to be one of those people with all the gear and no idea. We've got some of the gear and a little bit of an idea. And there wasn't any funny vibe on this campsite or anything like that. We'd not been sat up telling ghost stories to each other or anything because the kids were too little, and we all wanted as best as night's sleep as you can get in a tent anyway. We'd set up like most groups do when you're camping with lots of, we've kind of like had a central gazebo, and we'd clustered our tents around that, so we didn't have any kind of strangers in our circle or immediate circle, and then other tents around us. It was quite busy. There was a lot of people around, and this must have been about, because it was summer, so you're talking dusk, 9, 9:30, settling the kids down for bed. The kids were in the back of the tent and we were in the front, and we just heard these kind of like footsteps going around the tent. Not unusual on a campsite. You hear everything. I know you two aren't campers, but you hear everything. You hear every little, walk, step, people rustling around in the tents, trying to find the sleeping bags, everything, the full lot.
I just want to say, I don't know how you do it. I honestly, I wouldn't be able to settle. I hearing that much stuff going on. I hear my cat walking around the bed and it wakes me up. I don't know how on earth you can sleep like that. I mean, you said that you at that point you'd not really done many camping trips, but you are a bit of a camper, right?
Yeah, we go every year now. Yeah, it's become quite a thing. I don't know now after this year, when we did go camping after we'd thought that the whole black-eyed children thing, after the story, that the first time I told you guys this story, and we did go again, but that camping this year, it was a bit like, what if it happens again? And what if it happens again? It hasn't happened again. This moment in time, it was a one-off.
And you surely do feel more vulnerable in a tent than in your own home.
Oh, entirely. The first time that we went, it was because I used to camp quite a lot with my family when I was little, so it wasn't completely alien to me, but you do forget how exposed you are, and the sound, and you can hear everything. You can hear what somebody's doing in a tent, like at the other side of the campsite, if they're being, loud enough. Anyway, so we got the kids settled down, and we just heard these footsteps. Didn't think anything of it because that's just normal campsite behaviour. We always try and make note where we pitch our tents, like the kind of people that are around. So we were in the part of the campsite that seemed to have a few more kind of younger families around and stuff, and not the party tents that kind of clustered at one side, so you're out of the way of all that. And there was a big family behind us, but they didn't have any like young children. They were all like older teenagers, like 18, 19, in our immediate kind of tent neighbours. And like I said, I was just setting the kids down, and these footsteps were going round, and then this shadow just kind of like appeared to the left-hand side of the tent and was like near the door. So our tent's only got like the one big front zip door, and got like side doors or anything like that. It's very basic, as camping should be. What's the point if you're not going to rough it for a few days?
Kat, you should have been sleeping under the stars. Why did you even have a tent?
Because it was a bit wet, because it's British summer.
Oh, for goodness sake, honestly, amateur. You should be fucking Bear Grylls in it.
Not quite. Anyway, so this shadow just kind of appeared because there's like camp lights and stuff on around. And it's really difficult to knock on the tent, but try and imagine it was almost like a kind of knock, but and obviously it rustles like the fabric. And my other half was like, it was that, thinking it was one of our family members, there was an issue and they needed something. And we just heard this girl's voice. I would say probably around, sounded maybe like 13, 14, so not really young, not an older teenager, somewhere about that sort of age. And she was just really softly spoken. She wasn't shouting. She didn't sound distressed or anything like that. But innately, especially as a parent, you know, it's a child, you have that kind of, oh, somebody needs help. Why are you wandering around in the dark on your own? And like I say, it was funny because at the time I didn't think anything sinister or dark or anything about it, apart from when talking to you guys about it. And she said, I didn't speak to her, but I was with the kids sat in the back, like, who was that? I literally got the kids to sleep. Who was knocking on the tent, waking them up, like literally about to like fly out the tent and kick off. And then my other half was like, who's that? And this voice was just like, hello, it's Ellie. Can I come in your tent? I'm lost. And it's one of those funny things, like I said, I didn't think about it at the time, but if a child's asking you for help and they're lost, especially on a campsite in the dark, it's kind of like that instinctive nature to go, yeah, hang on a minute, let me just get my torch and I'll help you. And I don't know why we didn't, but even my other half, we didn't unzip the tent door. And I don't know why, and I can't even tell you why, I just didn't. And all he said was, you've got the wrong tent. I'm really sorry. And then she went quiet for a little bit, and then she was like, but I really need your help. Can I come in? It's Ellie. And we were like, I'm sorry, we don't know you. Or he did, I didn't. We don't know you. You'd got the wrong tent. And then she didn't say anything. There was no other sound apart from like footsteps kind of wandering off. So we kind of looked at each other and was like, it's a little bit weird. She must have just staggered off. She can't be that far away from a tent. But again, I don't know. When you think back, it's like, God, am I an awful person because I didn't unzip my tent to help a child that was obviously lost. But for some reason, we just didn't. It felt weird, but not in a, I didn't think it was a black-eyed child because I'd not really kind of put the two and two together.
I also think that usually, unless you are just an absolutely horrific person, I think usually your instincts are pretty spot on, aren't they? You know, I mean, usually if you know that something's
and I think
feel
because she
right,
didn't sound overly distressed, she wasn't like crying, she wasn't in like a stressy sort of panicked mode. Because it was like when you think back at it, if that had been my daughter who was lost, she'd have been really panicked and really agitated and stressed, like being lost and stuff.
I think most people would.
And she was just really calm about it. Anyway, so that was that. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, we'd got into bed with like in our sleeping bags, all zipped up, all got all nice and like trying to get warm because it was freezing. Peered back again. The same footsteps, exactly the same route around the tent to start this side, all the way around that side, and stopped in more or less exactly the same place at the front end, just to the side of the zips at the bottom of the door. Because for those that don't know, when you zip it in, you pull the zips on the inside of your tent and the flaps in.
That'll stop anyone getting in.
It'll stop anybody getting in. Like, it does on a campsite.
I can't find the zip.
Campsite rules. That is the most annoying sound while you're camping, though, when you hear somebody at like 2 o'clock in the morning unzipping the tent door, because it is so loud. It's ridiculous.
Well, you gotta go.
And she was back again, knocking. I'm lost. Can I come in your tent? It's Ellie. And again, by this point, my half's got like a bit annoyed because we've got the kids to sleep. We're trying to sleep. I really need to come in your tent. I'm lost. No, you've got the wrong tent. You need to go find your own tent. And like I say, there was she didn't kind of elevate anything. There was no more kind of aggression in her voice. There was no more panic. It was just very monotone, very, very calm, but equally pushy, because it was like, it's Ellie, I want to come in. It's like she was trying to, when you think back, it's like goading us to giving it a persona with a name. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's Ellie, it's a child that's lost. Of course you can come into the tent. It's like,
yeah, like if you tell me that you're lost and you need help, but also if you give me a name, it's like I've humanized myself, and therefore you would, because you're a caring person, you would help me.
Yeah.
But the fact that you had that instinct, or even Al did as well, like to be like, I'm not opening this tent.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot.
It was funny because the next day, and that was it. There was the double encounter. The next day, we kind of obviously asked our family. It was like, did anybody called Ellie come and like disturb you in your tent? And everyone was like, no, didn't hear anybody. Didn't hear nothing. There was nothing. So we was like, and at the time I thought it's a little bit weird. She must have gone off away, or they were all passed out, fast asleep, and didn't hear anything. But the more I think about it, the more weirded out I get about it. But no one else around, and we'd actually made the effort to go and speak to people and said, have you got anyone? Because the next morning we was like, oh, we should have probably helped her. But there was nobody else in our immediate area of tents, and we must have checked with maybe 10 or 12 different families. Nobody camping called Ellie with them. No child called Ellie. Not even an Eleanor that would be called Ellie or anything like that. And it just became a bit of a running joke around every time I go camp. I was like, Ellie might come knocking on the tent again when we go camping this week.
Be enough to stop me, anyway.
But it just became a bit of a joke, you know. And then it was like, maybe Ellie was after. And maybe Ellie was like after Al for a bit of fun. And it just became like a bit of a joke. Yeah. But after I talked about it with you guys this year, and I talked about it again with the family, we've all got a bit of a different outlook on it now. And it's just like, God, I hope she never comes back.
Yeah. Like now it's taken on that supernatural thing. It's almost like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be joking about this.
Yeah, so like I said, it was really funny until you guys never really thought of it. It was just, even though it was weird, really weird, I'd never put that kind of paranormal spin on it until we'd kind of talked about it.
Well, it was the first story that was told on that night. We said that we was going to have a night in and just tell some spooky stories. We drew the curtains, didn't we, in that living room, and we just said we was going to share some scary stories. And first, we asked if anybody knew any, and you know, the discussion was open to, okay, yeah, true events that we've experienced, but also just crappy campfire stories that we might remember from being a kid.
Legends. Yeah.
And then you came in with that fucking doozy, and it was just like,
well, it's like I ain't got a ghost story, but I've got a something weird happened camping story. Yeah,
that's it. And that's how you told it. You know, you never, and I get that. That's the bit that gets me, where I'm just like, that is weird, and it is because you never told us that story as it being paranormal or supernatural. It was just something really creepy, you know, like someone knocking at your door in the dead of night or whatever is generally creepy anyway. But then the fact that you told it and what happened, it's just like, that's probably even worse because it could be black-eyed children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has the hallmarks, and, you know, to be skeptical when I first heard the story, when Ellie first came to the tent, I thought, was this just a drunk teenager?
Which was one of our kind of initial thoughts, you know.
And I think that's just completely out of the window when, one, she came back, but two, she didn't disturb any other people. Usually if it was a drunk teenager, you
they'd be tripping over the guide ropes of the tent and everything. We were all quite closely packed in, do you know what I mean? Like, without a drink, walking around the tents. And she didn't have a light with her. There was no kind of torch or anything like. There was just the shadow of, as if you would, because you can see it because of lights everywhere else. But she didn't have a torch in her hand. She didn't have any sort of personal light device, whatever you want to call it, on her, from what we could tell. And it was really dark by then. And if you're walking in the dark around all those tents like that, you are guaranteed to fall over a rope. You will trip and you'll twang somebody's tent. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Do it during the day in the daylight.
Plays out like a Black-Eyed Kids encounter as well, because the Black-Eyed Kids don't knock on the door of number 28, don't get any joy, so they go to 30. Don't get any joy, so they go to 32. It's one house, you know.
Yeah, and you would have...
It's almost like they're selecting who they go for, which begs quite a scary question of what do they want?
And what do they want with us if it was?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you said, like, you can hear a zip on, you know, open on a tent from so far away and all the rest of it, and all those sounds are just amplified. You would have heard her if she was doing that. If she was going on to the next tent asking for help, and then the next one,
100%.
and then the next one, you would have heard her.
Yeah.
But the fact that
she didn't ask else.
anyone else other than your tent, that is fucking weird.
It is. And it's not the sort of thing you would do when you're drunk. I've been a drunk teenager many a time, and you'll go to any bed or whatever that'll have you, hence me getting in bed with your mother on more than one occasion.
Yes, and you paid the price.
So it does feel like that's not a reasonable explanation for this story, and I can't think of any other non-creepy skeptical answers to this.
No, I can't. The fact that, you know, okay, maybe it was a drunk person or whatever, but the fact that this person found your tent and your tent alone, not once, but twice, came back.
Amongst everybody else.
That's it. Was able to find your tent again when it's dark, and probably a lot of tents look very similar in the dark, I should imagine. I mean, I'm not a happy camper, but I would imagine that in the dead of night, with not many light sources, and not actually having a light source yourself, being able to find the exact same tent again, that's weird.
And it's funny to say about tents looking the same in the dark, because even if if I say this next thing, one of the families that we were camping with, we've got identical tents.
There you go then.
So
we bought the same tent.
So if it was a drunk teenager, got lost, looking for a tent similar to the one she was staying in, tried one, they said, no, you've got the wrong one, you would immediately go to the next one.
And you'd hear them looking for that other one, asking that question, but you never did. But then somehow they managed to find their way back to the very same tent that they asked to start with. Nah. No, I'm sorry. It's somewhat more.
It's a really convincing story.
It is. It really is. It really, really is. And I don't like it. It's scary.
I don't like it anymore. We just put it down to just a random. But then when you think about it more, you're kind of ticking things off, going, and that was even more weird than what I thought it was. Yeah. But nobody else had heard anything. No one seen anything. There was no Ellie in our immediate vicinity on the campsite.
And it plays to this thing of everybody who encounters these things just have that primitive, this isn't right feeling.
Like an instinct.
And that's exactly what happened to you guys.
Yeah, because, in any other scenario, if a child was asking for help, but I don't know what it was, we both just kind of looked at each other and was like, don't open the tent.
And I think it probably is because the stories don't marry up with the level of distress that the children are not showing.
Yeah.
So if you're lost, if you need to use the phone to urgently contact your parents or whatever it is that they're saying, if that came with weeping and I'm really scared or something like that, and an actual show of vulnerability, maybe these black-eyed kids would be more successful in gaining entry.
Yeah.
How old's your daughter now?
16.
Okay. So give, shave a year or so off that. If she had got lost in the campsite at night, I don't know, everyone's different.
Without a torch.
Yeah, exactly. But, and I know everyone's reactions are different. Some people manage to stay calm in certain situations.
She'd have been real stressed.
But I would imagine, for the most part, anyone who was of 13, 14, 15, who had got lost in the dark, in a campsite, I would imagine they wouldn't be expressing the level of calm that this person did when they knocked on your tent.
She'd probably just stand in the middle of campsite and scream.
Yeah.
She'd be equally terrifying.
I'll be a vocal lighthouse and just scream until someone sees me.
Should have been like, Mom,
it's actually valid, isn't it? Because it wasn't that late. I mean, yes, you would have thought you might wake up some younger children, but you're a child yourself at that age still. I know you're a teenager, but you're essentially a child. So if you thought you were in the reasonable vicinity of your tent, you'd just call out for your family.
You're in the middle of nowhere, in the dark, but there's lots of other people around, and campsites are fairly well lit around the main kind of communal, kind of like the shower blocks and stuff. But by the time you get into your part of the field where you're pitched up, it's relatively dark apart from people's kind of own night lights and camp lights that they've got up and around. So it's very, very, very dark. My daughter, if she was lost and wandering around, she'd either be stood screaming somewhere, or she would be in an absolute panic state and go to a tent that she would come to and ask for help. That sort. My son would though. He would. Yeah. If it was a boy, he would still go and do it.
But you'd be calling out names.
I would if I was lost. I'd be like, "Can you help me, please?"
That's it. You'd be saying you'd be.
I would be calm.
No, definitely not. I don't even think I would at my grand old age of 40. I don't think I'd be.
I just go sit in the toilet block till morning.
Yeah. I'll go sit in the latrine until someone
finds me. It's nice and warm in there.
Yeah.
So somebody comes to hunt for me. Cat, you've been gone for ages. I got lost.
I just got a really bad case of the shits.
So what you experienced is really quite similar to the account of the two teenagers that they gave to Lee Brickley, the paranormal investigator, and he then published in one of his books, which I could recommend. It's really good. I've read that one. They sort of heard giggling. I know you didn't hear giggling, but they heard giggling. And just encountered this strange girl who then disappeared. They were the only ones camping there, but there was absolutely no sign of her in the morning. And they actually also found a ring of stones around their tent.
Oh no, I'm out. That's Blair Witch shit. I don't deal with that.
No, I don't remember any ring of stones.
No.
Yeah, I think you'd remember that.
Can I just say as well, we've not been heavy drinking on this camping holiday as well, before anyone throws that out there.
Yes, collective drunk hysteria. Yeah.
Many a time has been drunk and I've not encountered such things.
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, you always have a few drinks camping, but when you've got loads of kids with you, you can't do it.
I don't think many can claim to have drunken shared paranormal activity.
No.
But I'm sorry, stone circle around my tent. Nah, I'm done. Thanks, I'm going home.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because why is that? We've all thought it. We all just thought the same thing, but a ring of stones, wherever you are, is weird, isn't it? Like, it's really freaky.
Well, I think
it's because you don't know what it means. Like, why?
I mean, does it mean you're a target? Stones are also, like, they can be heavy and they can be noisy when you put them down and things like that. They can make a noise. And the fact that they just, again, I always just see Blair Witch Project, just waking up and then there's just fucking piles of stones and shit like that. It's like, how did you not hear it? How did you not see it? And all that kind of stuff just creeps me the F out. I can't deal with that stuff. I just think it's really weird. Me and Charlotte, ages ago, we went for a walk around the cemeteries around here. And even this, like, it's a bit different, but some of those old headstones, they had like spray markings on them, but they were just marked with red X's, just randomly dotted all over the place. Probably has some sort of significance for the people who look after the place, but me and Charlotte found that to feel really sinister. And there's just something about like stones like that. I don't know, like maybe
stones and markings in the woods is a little weird.
It just feels wrong.
And I think it is because you don't quite know what it means. It's out of place, and the human part of you thinks, "Why? What does it mean?" So I found the Cannock Chase encounters a bit more venturing into the ghostly area rather than pure black-eyed kids. And I mentioned that these accounts come from all over, and these aren't the ghosts in the woods. These are the scenario that Brian Bethel described. So it's strange kids come into your house or your car, often in suburbs or cities as well, and usually at night. So a couple of these classic encounters, both of which really creep me out. This one was posted by a Reddit user some years back, and it's often referred to as the Midnight Caller. There's a woman at home with her husband and baby and their dog, which was a big bulldog named Chloe. It was Halloween night of all nights, and around 10 p.m, trick-or-treating had started to wind down. They'd turned off their porch light, let the dog out of her crate since they weren't expecting any more visitors. I think Chloe was quite vicious. Her husband had gone upstairs to shower. She was downstairs watching TV with the dog, and suddenly there came a knock at the front door. Very soft, very slow, almost rhythmic. She was annoyed at first, thinking, who's knocking so late? Why not ring the doorbell? We've turned off the lights. We've not accepted any more trick-or-treaters. We've ran out of sweets and candy, and we're not participating.
It's the Ocado delivery.
The dog immediately was on alert, as you would imagine. Instead of running to the door playfully, which she apparently would do, she actually ended up crouching by the back door as though she was really scared. And this was a big, fierce dog. And it was completely out of character for this dog as well.
It's funny, isn't it, how animals have that sixth sense. That
And
always freaks me out more than anything else when a dog or a cat behaves in an unusual manner.
We do it as a Nova sometimes when she's being mean. We're just like, stop it. Stop that right now.
Yeah.
Stop it.
When they're sitting staring like up at the ceiling in the corner, it's like, what are you looking at? What are you doing? Like, it's, freaks me out.
And they're not going to ignore their instinctual feelings because that's what they've got. We rationalise ours. And that's why sometimes we end up doing silly things. When that voice inside you has been saying, get the hell out of there, or don't do this, or don't do that, and you ignore it, animals don't do that. They just go by their...
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, well, I just need to be sure there's nothing there.
So the woman then felt this absolute wave of anxiety. She called out to her husband who was upstairs, but he was in the shower and he didn't hear her. The knocking came again, a bit louder this time. She had this feeling she described in the pit of her stomach. There's this dread, this anxiety. She went to the door, flicked on the porch light and peeked through the window. She saw two kids standing on the doorstep, boy and a girl, around 8 to 10 years old. They were dressed kind of normally, except it was quite odd to see kids that young out alone at 10 p.m. And also they didn't have Halloween costumes on, which was strange for that night. She opened the door just a touch, just enough to talk a bit, and kept the chain on. The little girl of the pair very politely said, "Ma'am, please can we come inside and use your phone to call our mum?" The woman thought that the kids spoke a little unusually. The girl's voice had a very mature, confident tone, and her phrasing was just slightly off. Words like mother instead of mum, which would be more usual for around that area and time. The little boy just continued staring at the floor and remained silent. She offered to call someone for them on their behalf and said she'd go and get her mobile phone. But the girl insisted, "Ma'am, my cell phone battery died and my little brother needs to use your bathroom. Can we please come in while you call our mother?" She said this very insistently. At that point, the woman finally felt a fear so overwhelmingly strong that it sort of snapped her out of this polite trance that she'd almost fallen into. She realised she'd unconsciously started to open the door wider, almost as if to invite them in. She caught herself and said, "Why don't you give me your mum's number and I'll make the call?" What followed was a long pause. The kids looked at each other as if annoyed or puzzled that she wasn't complying and inviting them in. Then the girl looked up at the woman and the porch light illuminated her face fully and revealed solid black eyes staring back at her. The woman described this as the most terrifying image that she'd ever seen. Two small children with absolute black voids for eyes, just standing on her doorstep at night. She slammed the door shut, saying, "No, I can't help you," or, something along those lines. As she did, the little girl outside let out a furious knock on the door, thumping it really hard, and yelled, "Ma'am, we're not going to hurt you. We just need to come in."
The story kept evolving, didn't it? So like, first of all, it was, "Can I use your phone?" And then it was like, "Can I use the phone?" And my little brother needs to use the bathroom. And now it's just gone back to, "I need to." It's like they're trying.
Yeah. So the only thing that really matters is just getting in.
Trying to get on that like empathetic route, isn't it? Of, "I need help, but also my little brother needs help as well."
Yeah. The story goes that the girl, sort of her voice anyway, started to become much more hostile. and actually angry that they were being refused entry. She then said, "If we wanted to hurt you, we'd have broken in already. Please let us in." Something about those lines was said from the other side of the door, and it just absolutely put this woman into a state of complete terror and broke her out of this trance. Meanwhile, the dog was growling ferociously at the door, and the woman was in this state of panic. She shouted through the door that she was going to call the police. There was silence for a moment, and then she heard the girl softly say once more, "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Please let us in." The woman still refused and stayed by the door, but not daring to open it or even to look out again. After a couple of minutes, she realised that she no longer sensed that they were outside. No more knocking or shouting. She peeked through the window and they were gone. The street was completely empty. The husband at this point, like the police in a movie, came downstairs when it was all over. And he just thought she'd had a nightmare or something, because by this time she was verging on being hysterical. To this day, she's convinced she narrowly escaped something truly awful by not inviting the kids in. She posted her experience to Reddit at her friend's urging, because she had never heard of the black-eyed kids before. And she was shocked to then find so many stories that were similar to hers on the internet. That's one of my favourite accounts and one I found chilling. I've got slight goose pimples just recounting it. And it does hit all of the classic elements that we've discussed. The late night knock, the request to come in, that growing sense of dread, and then the revealing of the eyes. Things along the lines of, "We're not going to hurt you." I think that's quite scary. Especially that they said if they wanted to, we would have, basically already. I found that quite...
It's an odd thing for a child to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
To an adult.
Exactly. It's almost that's a presumed thing that a child wouldn't have to say, "Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you." You'd be like, "Well, yeah, of course you're not." In normal circumstances, but in these circumstances, it seems entirely possible and probable that they're going to hurt you in some way if you let them in. It is a bit like a vampire myth, really. And there are lots of others of these accounts with only very, very slight variation, which again makes it more convincing for me. Some encounters happen on the road, so people driving at night. Sometimes I've even seen a stranded child hitchhiking, or a kid knocks on the car window, even sometimes at a red light. It's happened. One story I remember reading was a man actually riding on a bus, late night bus home, and a well-dressed guy in maybe 20s or 30s was sat across from him. The witness noticed that the man was oddly chewing on an unlit cigar and staring out of the window. Suddenly the man turned around and looked at him, and his eyes were completely black. He gave the guy an eerie grin with his teeth stained from the tobacco, and the witness completely freaked out, moving seats to get away. He later rationalised it might have been somebody with the contact lenses just pranking him, but the fear that he felt at that moment was really visceral. So this so-called black-eyed man chatted to another passenger completely normally afterwards, as though nothing was amiss, which seems really weird. So it's not necessarily always little kids, but the absolute bulk of these accounts are children or perhaps early teens.
The way you described that story then, it's almost like he was the only one who saw it.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's what goes back to that thing about the getting inside your head.
Could that man turn those black eyes on and off? And found it a creepy detail that he was just chewing on an unlit cigar, almost as though he was eating the damn thing.
Yeah, tasty.
It is that perception, isn't it? Is it just that they've got that power to get inside your head, so only you're that person see it? Has there ever been any accounts of anybody actually letting them in?
Yes. Now, I only literally read about this.
There aren't many accounts of this because we assume they're all dead.
And that's a chilling possibility.
Yeah.
But I literally read this a couple of days ago of a lady who just lived on her own who had one of these encounters, 2 children. I think that story as well was that needed to. It wasn't they needed to phone the mum; they needed to wait for the parents to pick them up. And could they wait in the house? It was cold, which is similar to the story I'm going to tell in a second. But the lady let them in, and they stayed for a while. Acted not overtly oddly, but there was not really any conversation. Every time the lady tried to engage them, they didn't really say very much. And it was only whilst they were in a house she realised that they had these jet black eyes. She started to feel really scared and was prompting, when are your parents going to be here? When are your parents going to be here? When are your parents going to be here? And in the end, the kids looked at each other, smiled, stood and left. She looked out of the window to see if there was a car or anything come to collect them. Couldn't see anything, couldn't see the kids. They'd just gone. So she was relieved. Literally within a week, her mum died. She lost her job. Started having suicidal thoughts. Basically, everything turned to absolute shit. And in the end, she went and spoke to a priest who gave her some sort of prayers to say in the house. And she did that, and then things started to improve. So it may be that they just very much sort of cursed. She also became really unwell, and nobody really knew what was wrong with her. It wasn't seriously, hospitalisation unwell, but she developed this cough, and it seemed like a chest infection, but nothing seemed to shift it until basically she'd spoken to this priest and started saying these prayers, and then things seemed to settle down again for her.
Just don't let him in then, innit?
Don't let him in.
Don't let him in.
But we obviously, the people who let him in and were brutally killed, we've not heard from.
No. Why didn't you let him in, Kat? We could have found out what happened.
I let in some random person called Ellie in my tent at 10 o'clock at night.
All right, you're no fun.
So another often circulated story is quite an elderly couple in Vermont. So again, it's a wide range of people as well that encounter these kids. The legend goes that during a winter storm, the older couple heard loud knocking on the front door. They opened the door, saw two kids, boy and a girl, both around 9 years old, standing on the porch, and they were actually shivering. Kids said something along the lines of, similar to the story I've just told, "Our parents will be here soon, can we come in?" The couple, being kind-hearted, seeing that the kids were cold, brought them in without really very much hesitation. As soon as the kids sat down, the lovely old couple made them some hot cocoa. Then they noticed that something was just off. The kids' eyes weren't just dark, they were pitch black. For a moment, the lady felt a stab of fear, and then suddenly, actually, the power went out. They didn't think too much of this because there was a snowstorm going on this evening, and the power going out wasn't particularly weird on its own. The room fell dim. The wife went and to get a flashlight and some candles. When she returned, the kids were standing in the hallway, completely still. The little boy said, "Our parents are here." And the two children walked to the door, opened it, calmly walked out into the dark, leaving the door wide open. The couple saw what looked like two tall figures at the end of their driveway, and the children joined them and disappeared into the night. After that, the story gets even more bizarre. Couple's power came on a short while after, but in the days and weeks after, a series of misfortunes struck. The husband, who had been healthy, suddenly developed a severe illness, with some versions of the story saying it was cancer. The wife began suffering from nosebleeds and other assorted health issues. The cat was found dead mysteriously, and it really is as if letting the kids into their home just brought them a curse or some sort of bad luck. Omen.
Harbingers of doom.
This one's been retold so often that it does have a bit of a ring of being an urban legend. There's not really a verified source of the couple's identity, so this one's a bit, touch and go as to whether it's a true story or a bit of a combination of other encounters, or even one that somebody's just written as a fictional tale that's been represented as a factual one. But I guess it it gets cited as a warning to never let these kids in. If the other stories don't make that clear, then, you know, maybe the old couple being kindly might just make people think twice.
Well, when they're killing your cat, that's it.
Yeah.
You've got me. And when you mess with my fucking cat, I'm not letting any fucker in.
Now, one thing that I really find chilling is I've actually heard of a way that you can supposedly summon these kids to come to your door.
Absolutely not.
And
Get out.
Don't be stupid.
there are some folks on YouTube and paranormal circles who have actually tried to attract these kids by using certain sounds or music.
People will do anything for a subscriber, won't they?
I honestly haven't dared to look for it even.
Really?
But apparently it's out there.
Shall we do it now? Shall I have a look?
No.
Well, it's your house, so.
No, but I'll...
We don't. It's like you say, it's very random. We don't know how they select their. Let's call them victims. We don't know how they select.
Well, if
that.
Brett
You could do it
summons
here,
them, I
where in
have
the
them coming
room.
to my home.
Yeah, but they might not be that picky.
I'm
They
not
might
saying
pick
we'll-
one of us in the room.
I'm
Can
not
you
saying
do
we'll
when
do
not
the
in
ritual. I just want you to know what they do.
Yeah, but that could be part of it.
Yeah, no, it's
No.
too dangerous.
You can do it when we're not here.
I'll tell you what, I'll do it when I'm at work, because then they can go to work's address.
But what if they chose you?
Yeah, it might not be location based. It could be person based. We don't know how they're selecting
They
their.
might go by IP address.
By everything we've said, they specifically handpick the victim.
Yeah.
Oh, God, fine, I won't summon any demon children. God, you're so boring.
Cat wasn't doing any summoning in her tent.
No, but I'm just saying I won't do it.
If she was one and she's been to me once and she's failed, she might come back for more. No, thank you.
All right, I won't do it.
This is a really interesting thing. Like when we were discussing the doll that responded to insults,
Yes.
and I asked you, would you, even if you don't really believe in that particular story, would you dare go and insult the doll and perhaps have bad luck heaped upon you? And this is another one of those. I think even people who are really not sure if these things are true, these stories are true, would you still dare
No.
try that music?
No. I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't... If me just watching the video has a chance of bringing them here, then okay, fine, I won't watch it. But I was just going to see what the whole thing entails. I was just looking for information. But if you're saying that me watching this video, it has the potential of summoning black-eyed children, then yeah, I wouldn't
Well,
watch it.
some say it's music, and some say it's like a binaural beats type
Oh, right,
thing,
okay.
certain frequency that attracts them. I've got no real verification of whether this has been used successfully or not. I just thought it was an extra creepy sort of angle.
Presumably, it must have worked. Well, presumably, if it was to have worked, these people who have put that on YouTube would have
Well,
said so.
there's a paranormal podcast group called the Quantum Mechanics, and some of their investigators claim that they played a specific audio frequency that's rumoured to lure black-eyed children. And they claim that the result was that they actually caught a black-eyed kid on camera for the first time. I believe this was actually picked up by the Daily Express as well in the UK. I think that the Quantum Mechanic, or if you try look at the Daily Express, and the headline, I think, was "Black-eyed kid caught on camera after investigators play eerie sound."
It's always an eerie sound. It's never anything cheery, is it?
I bet it sounds like the fucking horn from the page. Let's have a look.
Or the song out of what's that? The film called?
Which film?
And it plays it on the.
Oh, you mean on Insidious?
Yeah, that.
That bloody from the tune.
That bloody Razzie
Thing
song.
haunts me.
Sorry, is it that? Let's not play that.
Okay, if it was that, then I'm definitely not playing it because that's
What's
someone
that
weird.
picture? That's sinister. It's cool.
That? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's it.
Probably over here it look more creepy than it does close up.
Yeah, I'm not finding anything, but I will continue to look. Not now, but I will. And see if I can find that, and we'll talk about it another time.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if we can find that. image, actually.
One of the other theories that I've read about black-eyed kids is that it's not one I particularly buy, but that they're an entity called a tulpa, which is basically something that manifests if people think about it enough, which does bring you to a bit of a chilling conclusion that if they are a tulpa and we've spent the entire night talking about them, are we attracted to them?
Oh, that's it. I'm not sleeping
Could have
tonight.
started with that.
Yeah, we could have just concluded the episode.
Where I'll be running up to bed when I get in.
Yeah. We could have concluded the episode before we even started.
We're not going to talk about them because we think we might summon them by doing so. So we'll just leave it there, shall we?
Shall we now refer to the black-eyed children as fluffy, cute puppies?
Yeah.
Because maybe they're tulpas and they'll appear instead.
Still find that frightening if they're knocking on the door in the dead of night.
I'd still let them in.
If these stories have taught us anything, Brett, it's do not engage with these entities. One interesting angle worth mentioning is there's actually a lack of recent reports. There's been some discussion in online forums about how sightings and encounters of the black-eyed kids seem to peak in the 2010s. And they've become less common in the past couple of years. Some people almost like heartedly or jokingly say that it's because we have Ring doorbell cameras now, and so many people have them, and black-eyed kids don't particularly wish to be caught on a Ring doorbell video.
Does it mean if you don't have one, you're more
likely to get a visit?
Because I don't have
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah.
Oh, we're definitely going to get a
We're
visit.
definitely getting a visit. We're definitely getting a visit. Either that or they all died of COVID.
Yeah.
Maybe they were particularly susceptible to COVID. We just don't know.
I mean, they never walked around with masks on.
No, there was no masked encounters of black-eyed kids, to my knowledge. Maybe we should have an affiliate link to Ring doorbells now as a method of
protection.
repelling black-eyed kids.
I know what's going in my Amazon basket tonight.
Yeah, that's going on my wish list for Christmas.
I don't know if sightings have truly gone down or if other viral spooky trends have replaced them. We had the creepy clown waves for a while, didn't we? Even Slender Man started to become part of the sort of modern paranormal interest. Probably the most hardcore researcher is a person called David Weatherly, who wrote really the definitive book on black-eyed kids, and the one I've just very recently read. If anybody wants any further sort of tales and encounters, more of a deep dive into the theories of what these things are or may be, I would very much recommend his book. It's called Black-Eyed Kids. David Weatherly, that's by. There's still been recent sightings of the Cannock Chase child. There's been sightings as recently as 2023, and there was even some claims of a drone catching footage of that ghost. It apparently caught a figure that looked like a girl with black eyes running around in the forest. Again, made a splash into the sort of local news and got a bit of online traction as well.
I'm just going to put this out there. I've got a tent. We know where it is.
No.
Are we going camping in the woods?
No, because it's illegal.
I'm not doing it. Not doing it. I'm
Even
sorry.
if it was legal.
And that's the only reason why.
Yeah, you're all bogged down in the legalities, not because you're terrified, Lee. Yeah.
Can you go for walks in those woods?
Yeah, there's lots of walking
You just
trails.
can't camp there.
We could go walking. I don't mind going for a walk.
Yeah, you can't camp,
I'm not
but
staying
you
in
can-
the night, though.
You can go walking.
I bet there's much we could get an Airbnb on the
It'd be interesting because
vicinity of.
by all accounts, it is a magnet for the paranormal. There's all sorts of UFO sightings, all sorts of things.
Oh, there we go.
around
That's
that
our next
area.
weekend away as a group.
We need to be there. That's where we need to go.
Sorted. Get it booked.
Yep. Let's do it.
So, as always, I think it's important to balance these interesting stories with a skeptical angle. Investigators who sort of specialise in debunking have looked into this phenomenon, and they conclude that there's no documented evidence. There's no police reports. often no verifiable identities of the people telling the stories, and nothing very much that stands up to any sort of heavy scrutiny. A paranormal skeptic called Sharon Hill examined the stories and noted that they're mostly transmitted friend to friend or via creepy storytelling, likening it to the old phantom black dog legends, particularly of which we saw things like big cats on the North York moors and things like that, with no hard proof. Often paranormal things doesn't have hard proof, otherwise, we wouldn't get such fascination from discussing it all of the time. The fact that many stories end with nothing concrete, the black-eyed kids vanish or somebody gets poorly later on after encountering them, does make it quite easy for skeptics to say there's absolutely nothing here but anecdotes. The fact-checking site Snopes just calls the black-eyed children purely a legend, and saying that there's as much evidence for them as there is for Bigfoot, i.e. none, just tales.
Fair point.
It's true that these stories really do rely on the credibility of the storyteller and nothing much more. Human memory and perception can be flawed, especially in the dark, if you're tired. Pair of dilated pupils could look all black in some lighting. Child wearing dark sunglasses or with deep set eyes could be misseen as having black eyes. That's very tenuous, isn't it?
Do you want to take those sunglasses off, please? They're my eyes. I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous.
It's up there with the swamp gas explanation for UFOs. Isn't it?
Yeah, agreed. That's absolutely nonsensical. I'm sorry, but no one's mistaking a child with jet black eyes, black sockets as sunglasses. You just no.
And these skeptics, of course, point to the prank element of contact lenses. But again, what joy are you getting out of pranking somebody you don't know as a child and just going to one house down an entire street?
Yeah.
It seems really, really unlikely. And I actually think this is one of these rare things in the field of the paranormal where the skeptics' explanations are much less believable than the stories
like
that are
clutching
being
at straws
told.
in a way, isn't it?
It is.
So the whole kind of contact lens theory then, are we talking because contact lenses that you can just buy over the counter, obviously you're talking the ones that just turn your iris all black for your pupil, not the whites of your eyes, like your eyeball. That's like tattooed eyeball.
That's like a bloody big contact lens, isn't it? That's
what I mean.
It's something.
Can you buy them? Can you buy full art? You can. Right.
You can. Yeah.
I like going to the extreme, tattooing eyeballs of children.
Yeah. That's commitment.
Yes. and you actually there is a guy, I believe, who has had his eyeballs tattooed.
I've seen it before. I've seen that before, but
incredibly dangerous and completely ridiculous.
These are horrible.
Yeah, so they're readily available now. But this wasn't always the case.
No, that's what I mean. So it's like when contact lenses have been around for a while, but all colour and the cost of them.
I mean, even they're a bit spenny though.
That's what I mean. Even now they're quite expensive.
Covered black sclera coloured contact lenses, £80.
Yeah,
£80 for a child for a prank.
And that's in 2025.
And again, you get children to prank people they know.
whatever happened to knock off Ginger?
And why would the prank be? The prank would just be, you would just purposely get the person to look at your eyes because you want to display your new expensive contact lenses. The plan wouldn't be, please will you let us in while I look at the ground, and then suddenly I'll look up.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't
leave a case behind.
It wouldn't come with this ridiculous, can I come in thing. It would just be, look at my eyes.
Check out my eyes, motherfucker.
So I do think that the skeptical team here is less convincing.
Yeah, sometimes that does happen as well, doesn't it?
Makes for a good conversation point though, doesn't it?
Well, it's always good to laugh at the skeptics, I think. I mean, I'll say that I maybe lean more towards being a believer of a great many things because, it's always good to have an open mind, isn't it? But I do like to take into account the fact that some things could just be misinterpreted. But when you hear explanations like that, I just think you sound like a fucking idiot. You know, it's just like, I'm sort of like that one sticks in my mind. Oh, I've just mistaken them for sunglasses. Yeah. Shut up. Just get out. Who's mistaking them for sunglasses? Can you take them off, please?
And I think it's all right as well saying that, you know, these things are often just transmitted friend to friend. Indeed, that's the story we've had from Kat. But for me, that the fact that happened to Kat, and that was even without seeing any black eyes.
Yeah.
It was just all of the other MO was identical to these stories. For me, that gives it much more credibility that we know somebody who's potentially had one of these encounters. And the great thing about these stories is, even if one is true, then there's something really dark and malevolent out there.
Agreed.
Even if the rest of the stories are made up, embellished, or just simply not true.
Well said.
For one, I'm not going to be answering any late night knocks at the door. I will run up to bed. I might look out and just check. But I found the whole thing really terrifying and unsettling. And again, I hope these aren't a bloody tulpa because I think about them a good deal of the time.
Well, you probably would have had a visit by now then.
But yeah, probably. But you know, I've been reading the book that I mentioned just lately, and I've been reading it in bed, and I have just thought, what would I do if there was a knock at the door now? And I honestly would be absolutely terrified.
Yeah. Well, you know the kind of street that we're on. You know, I mean, we get a lot of traffic through here, and you know, we've thought before like about knocks at the door and stuff like that. And I mean, even someone knocking at a time which is unusual is always unsettling anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, the other morning, honestly, we had a knock at the door, and Charlotte gets up earlier than I do because she's got a lot more hair to wash in the morning than I have. So she's up a little bit earlier than I am. So I'm still in bed, and I heard this knock at the door, and I knew Charlotte was downstairs. So I just reached for my phone in my half asleep state, and I messaged, was that you? She was like, no, someone's at the door. And there was a knock again. I was like, what the shit biscuit is going on? So I sort of got up and started getting dressed, and I just messaged her. I said, answer it. Because I knew that if it was someone, Dodge or whatever, I'd be there in a second. I was literally getting out of bed and getting dressed. It was the fucking Amazon driver. It was like 7:30 in the morning. Yeah. And I was just like, did this Amazon driver, like the most eager Amazon delivery driver on earth, or did he just shit the bed?
Finishes round early, doesn't he?
Yeah, he just wants to fucking get home. But my point is that it was really unsettling, that fact that someone was knocking at our door so early. So the fact if like someone knocked at our door now, that would all, even with all of us here, you know, there's us three here and the Charlotte downstairs. If someone knocked at the door now, I'd be unsettled, regardless of my knowledge of the black-eyed children or anything. Someone knocking at your door at a time which you're not expecting, whether that's late, early, you're always a little bit like, who's at my door? And then I think if you did that, like you do usually when it's dark and you don't want to open the door or whatever, you do that, who is it? If I was greeted with a tone like that and a question like that, can I come in? I think I'd be like, well, what do I do? Because is this a child as bait to get me to open the door? Or is this a child who's actually in danger? Or is it something else?
I think that's the other scary thing about it is that's another very real possibility that if a child knocking at the door is not paranormal in any way, the other worry is there some big burly bloke around the corner coming to rob your house or whatever?
Because that happens. You know, they get ladies to make out as if they're vulnerable. Young ladies to knock on the door, I'm in trouble. You open the door, and then the next minute you've got three guys barging past her to get through the door and beat 10 balls of shit.
I think what would be different with that than these stories is these kids aren't very good at acting distressed, if that's what they are doing. It would explain almost everything else, like the carefully chosen victims. Perhaps they have got something expensive in the house that somebody wants to steal. You could say maybe they're just being used as bait. Don't really fit with Cat's story, or can't even fit with a car story. There might be somebody waiting to steal the car.
Well, I think this is the thing: is if someone was being the bait, usually they're pretty good at being able to act as if they're in distress, because that's how they fool you. But this person who knocked on your tent, Cat, was not very good at acting because you didn't open your tent. Where if this person was in distress, as we discussed earlier, if this person sounded distressed, you would have opened your tent, no doubt. But the fact that there was something off about the tone and just the whole content of it as well, just like, nah, this don't sound right. I'm not opening that tent.
One thing I forgot to mention throughout this, which is, to my mind, a point towards the demonic, is that people often describe a really strong smell of rotten meat or sulphur in the area after these kids have been there. One person said it persisted in their sort of driveway for 2 or 3 days. They thought it was the bins and so on, and it wasn't. So there's that in common as well, which often that can be a sign of a demonic entity, that smell of rotting meat or sulphur.
Shit, yeah. Well, there you go. I mean,
so that I thought that was quite an interesting sort of extra dimension to it.
So what is your feeling then? What do you lean more towards the black-eyed children being?
I strongly lean towards the demonic explanation, which for some people might be the least acceptable sort of idea. But I think the idea that the eyes are the window to the soul has come around after years and years and years, centuries. It's ancient, that idea of the eyes being the window to the soul. And I think the very thought of a kid, an adult like the man on the bus that was described, having jet black eyes is terrifying. And the reason it's terrifying is you don't look at that and think somebody's got an illness or whatever. In fact, to have an illness that caused your eyes to turn jet black would almost certainly mean you were blind. So you can, there is a really tragic photograph of a girl, I think it was in Brazil somewhere, who got trapped by a falling tree, and she's in water, and they photographed her, but she was sort of moments away from drowning, and she had a lot of trauma, and her eyes were black, jet black. But that was because of what had happened to her. It's not a paranormal thing, and it's not for consumption in that way. But it shows that, I guess, certain pathologies could cause your eyes to turn black. But these are the sort of people who are going to be able to be out and about knocking on doors and talking. So I think the jet black eyes thing really points to something evil and malevolent, coupled with the asking permission to come in, coupled with selected targets. So unless these entities think that somebody in the property is vulnerable in some way, or the person that they're just speaking to is vulnerable in some way and more easily able to be possessed, I think that gives a bit of weight to the please let us in, can we come in? And I often think when you hear accounts of demonic activity, it tries to look like something innocent. It'll speak in a soft voice. It isn't a caricature of a demon. I'll kill you. It appears something quite harmless and quite soft.
Well, they're often tricksters, aren't they? They usually, promise something you like, and that they can give it to you. They're often meant to be. They're often perceived or give off the perception that they're actually nice.
Yeah.
So it kind of marries up with that whole thing of, well, children are usually the sort of image of innocence, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's sort of marries up with that, doesn't it?
It does. And that would be, if you're going to let anyone in, it's going to be a kid. A kid in distress. It's just that they don't seem to have got the distress acted down yet.
I remember seeing one theory about are they aliens, and I think the reason some people think that they may be aliens is because they have similarities in their appearance to what are known as the Greys.
Yep.
So type of aliens with the grey skin, the big black eyes, that really sort of cliched stereotype of an alien. And that also would explain why they speak in a really monotone way, because they're almost mimicking human speech. So yeah,
what are your thoughts on that one?
I think that's nonsense. Personally, I think I can see why some people might believe that, but it's what happens to those afterwards, because we are led to believe that people who are visited by aliens, it's because they're here to research us and understand us and everything. Well, anyone that's ever had an encounter, as far as I ever read or whatever, is that no one's been probed by one. So it's just like no one's turned around and said, "Oh yeah, well, I let them in," and then he shoved a camera at my house.
And why would they have permission to come in?
Yeah,
alien. Like for an alien to be at a point where it's knocking on somebody's door.
Yeah.
He's run out of options.
He's travelled across a few galaxies.
Exactly.
And he gets to the door and he
would just be unrecognisable. If they wanted to come into your house, they'd be in there. You would be none the wiser. You wouldn't even be able to see or perceive them.
Yeah.
Or even if you did, they would be able to wipe your memory instantly.
Yeah.
For me, that's the least convincing of the theories.
Again,
in fact, eyes being mistaken for sunglasses, or sunglasses being mistaken for eyes, is more convincing to me than
it being
these
aliens.
entities are aliens.
I think it was just like, well, okay, well, I can understand how you've kind of got to that point of like, well, are they aliens because they have really pale greyish skin, or they've got the really big black eyes, and they don't speak right? Yes, but that's where the similarities end. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, well, I've got 2 legs, 2 arms and a head, and therefore I look exactly like Cher. It's just like, that's, because I've got those things does not mean I look like Cher. That I've got those things and that's where the similarities end. Yeah. It's just, and I think that's why the whole thing of like aliens is just, you've got to a point, but you've lost it now. It doesn't, the rest doesn't add up. And I think I'm still with you that it I feel like it's demonic. But what about you, Kat? What do you think?
Aliens, definitely. No, I'm just throwing that in there.
Yeah, you're going to be the wild card on it.
Ellie the alien. It's got a ring to it.
Yeah.
Alien. I think the demonic thing's probably the most believable of all the different theories. I was just thinking then, it kind of spins off from that alien thing, like travelling for all that time and they just kind of rock up and knock on your door sort of thing. But from the demonic side, and based on obviously all the encounters and things that we've talked about tonight, are they the demons, or are they the pawns of a demon?
Yes. Yeah.
Are they being used? Because it feels a bit, it feels a bit beneath a demon, in a way. It's like, it's that trickster thing, isn't it? It's that, I don't know.
But don't forget, a demon's ultimate want, if you like, well, there's 2. One is to just cause chaos and misery to human beings. They hate human beings. As the religious story goes, human beings were made in the image of God, so hence demons utterly detest human beings. Or the other thing that they would want is to possess somebody. And to
To
me,
cause
that
chaos
makes
and
it
destruction.
yeah, and to me that makes it compelling with the asking permission to come in. That's almost like, is that the first step? So when you say yes, then
Yeah.
that's a step along the way. Obviously, we had those 2 encounters that did let them in, and they actually just terrible luck befell them. But maybe they weren't suitable to be possessed after all.
Yeah, maybe that it was
Yeah.
like the trail left behind or something like that. You don't know, do you? But yeah, I just feel like, I don't know, maybe the whole, like you say, because generally as a rule, if a child's in distress, and I just feel like they're just being like used as pawns, maybe, and that, I don't know.
Yeah. I think for me, this whole thing with black-eyed children, it's I think it's a really interesting story, legend, whatever it is. And I always kind of feel drawn back to being a believer of it just based on this really eerie, inexplicable experience that you had, and the fact that there are so many other stories just like it. But I always just find it really strange that it's not a terribly old phenomenon. And the fact that, like you said, those instances seem to have, those reported occurrences, they'd never really hold a massive amount of weight. It's a little bit like what we said about some of the urban legends in our Halloween special episode. It's that you can find reported cases with people's names, but they're few and far between. There's lots of other stories around them, but they're not actually linked to actual names, places. They're always just stories. And then that makes you think, well, how much of this is actual truth? How many people have actually come forward reportedly with these stories? But then you kind of think to yourself, well, okay, yeah, but maybe not everyone's just reporting it because they're too scared to. But then, as you say, as the rise of the Ring doorbell and things like that, these stories have disappeared. And is that because people now know they can't make up these stories as easily?
But it doesn't stop this from happening in cars or tents.
No.
So you wonder why the accounts have dwindled in more recent years. Which is not a question I can answer. I haven't really got any theories on it, other than the Ring doorbell thing. But then why would encounters stop in other? Maybe it's just the rise of cameras everywhere in general.
Well, that's it. I mean, we're more and more under
I
surveillance.
mean, a lot of cars now will record if somebody approaches,
A lot.
Majority of campsites have CCTV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of, like you just said there about cars, the amount of cars now that are fitted with those dash cams.
Yeah.
A lot of people get them now for insurance purposes, don't they?
Yeah.
A lot of new drivers have them because it brings their insurance costs down. They're seen as like a safety thing, aren't they? But they're good because they capture people doing other activity, criminal activity and things like that. So you sort of wonder yourself, well, is it that as well? Is it harder to prove this kind of thing happens? I mean, everyone always has a phone on them as well. Everyone always has a phone on them. And honestly, I was walking from, kind of unrelated, but what I'm trying to say is, this is what I mean. Everyone's got a fucking camera ready. And this is also what brings me back to how there's very little of this stuff on YouTube. Someone's always made a video of it. The fact that there's no hoaxes is weird, and it kind of counter.
He's really strange.
Yeah, it kind of counter argues what I'm about to say, but because I think that that's also a very compelling case for the fact that they may be real. But I walked out of work today, and I was walking through town, and there was this group of unsavoury people, a little under the influence, may we say, and I had my headphones in, I had my music on, and I could sort of hear them having a bit of a spat, and I could tell something was about to kick off, and I was just like, oh, whatever, I'm not involved, so they're not going to do anything to me, and I'll just walk past them, and I maybe got about 7 or 8 steps past them, and I heard this scuffle go on, right? And I turned round, and sure enough, one of them had whacked the other one and he'd gone down to the ground. And these two girls who were walking towards me, their first instinct, got the phone out and recorded it. They recorded it. And I think this is the other thing. So it's like the fact that everyone is ready to record everything all the time. I mean, that's all
It's so quick and easy to do it now, isn't it? It's instantaneous, really.
People document everything, don't they? Don't matter what they're doing. They're just recording and photoing everything. And I kind of think, is that also why these stories of black-eyed children have also faded? Because someone would have been like, well, are you telling me you came across it and you didn't, why didn't you photo it? You photo everything. You know, you photo your dinner, you photo your lunch, you photo yourself just standing in the fucking toilet. You know, it's just like, but no one's taken photos of it, to see these encounters that they've had.
See, I've got a theory on that, and I think because to counteract the point, everyone's got a camera these days, as you rightly say, but the amount of UFO sightings hasn't gone down. In fact, it's gone up.
Mm.
And still, you see really crap pictures that look like they've been taken on potato.
Yeah.
Of supposed UFOs. And it's not stopped people doing that. Whether they're hoaxes, whether the people believe they're real, we're still getting, well, as I say, in fact, the amount of sightings of UFOs has gone up in recent years, whereas the black-eyed kids one's gone down. And I think, I don't really know the reasons for that, but the reason I think why there isn't much in the way of hoaxes of these things, and so we're not being flooded with them and supposed videos or images of them online, is there's not a lot to them. There's not a lot to these encounters. What a lot of it plays on is your visceral fear. So there's probably nothing that impressive about a kid knocking on the door and saying, can I come in to use your phone? Even if they have got what appear to be jet black eyes. Mm. And I just don't think you would get many people posting, because what makes the story scary is the fear that they're invoking the people who encounter them. And I think, personally, that's why there's not any hoaxes, really, that you see. I don't know why the encounters have gone down. I just don't know.
I've got a theory about the UFO encounters going up. One word: drones.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. There was, and things like this, when new stuff comes out, that's when it goes up. I mean, you'll probably remember this story, Brett, but I remember when I lived at my mum and dad's, laying in bed, summer's night, had my windows wide open, and of course it was fields at the back of my parents' house. And I saw what I thought was a UFO fly over that was like half the size of the backfield. And I was petrified, because I was like, this is it. It's an invasion.
Independence Day.
That's what it looked like. Yeah. And this thing, sort of kind of triangular shaped, massive, silently just flew across and then just appeared to disappear entirely. I was like, wow. My heart was thumping. I actually slept in the spare room. I couldn't get to sleep in my bedroom.
Aliens won't find me in here.
Yeah. I just thought, I'd rather not see it, don't we? And the next day I found out it had been the Humber Bridge midnight walk, and they'd let off a string of those lantern things that people used to let off.
That was a thing at one point.
And that was a thing.
Yeah.
But it looked so weird because the flames all went out at once, so that's why it appeared to disappear to me. And it was silent. And because they were sort of tied together and moved as one, it just looked like this huge craft with mood lighting. So I think, you're right, Kat. You know, there's lots of drones now and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. So you will see those sightings go up. But in turn, we're still clearly getting a lot of UFO sightings that are out and out just hoaxes. Whereas we're not seeing that with the black-eyed kids.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because even if you think like how easy it is to pull off a hoax, like it's quite difficult to do a UFO as a Do you know what I mean? To do a really good hoax that people might believe in for a little bit, that's quite difficult to do. Whereas a hoax for a black-eyed child, you'd think it'd be quite easy to pull off, wouldn't it?
would be
Do you know what I
easy.
mean?
And I
It would be
It'd be quite an
really
easy
easy.
thing to do, wouldn't it?
I think that's the bit that always gets me about this one is the fact that like no one's done anything. No one's done. Those Ring doorbells are perfect for a hoax like that because
Yeah.
they're not always the best picture, and they've got that sort of fisheye lens type thing, which makes it a little bit distorted and a little bit weird. And
Yeah.
and I think a couple of kids just walking up to the door with a hoodie on and they're pulled up and you can't see them, and then maybe as they start walking away they look back and you can see their eyes. It'd be like the perfect hoax, wouldn't it? And it's like the fact that no one, as far as I can tell, I'm going to have a look in a bit to see if anyone's done anything like that, but I don't seem to remember seeing shit like that with the black-eyed children.
I don't, and I've not found it whilst I've been looking.
How much we have on that now?
I've got a theory.
Go on.
It's really out there, but fuck it, why not? What if people have done it and now they're the demons?
Oh, okay.
Don't pretend to be one because he takes you into his army of black-eyed
Yeah, but then
children
that
and
would-
sends you out.
That would presume that unless they the demon makes them into children, that would presume that his children performing the hoaxes.
Yeah, but a lot of children do hoaxes and pranks, don't they?
True. I mean, I'm searching here, and a lot of it is just stories.
Yeah.
No one's
That
creepy.
picture at the bottom's terrifying.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, these are terrible. I mean, these are like all people in about 800 miles away in the woods,
Yeah.
which could easily be pareidolia. But no one, I haven't come across one yet, which is someone stood at the door. Like, I've not come across that yet. Yeah, I mean, that even says that it's AI,
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, I know what I'm dressing up for is Halloween next year.
Yeah, it'd be unique. It'd be unique. Actually, that's a really good point that backs up really what I said. It's not even a common Halloween outfit. And I think that's the point is there's not an awful lot to the stories without the attached feelings of
People.
fear.
Is there any horror films? Is there do you know what I mean? Is there any
I don't think
actual
there is.
films about black-eyed children?
Not specifically.
Not specifically.
Let the right one in. That's vampires, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so similar prospect, but it's not actually
Yeah.
black-eyed children, is it? I mean, I always sort of think, because when you told that story the first time we heard it, when we was away, as you was telling it, at first I kind of thought back to The Strangers.
Yes.
Where
knocking on the
someone's
door.
knocking on the door and they're like, oh, I think she asks for Tamara, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Is Tamara home?
Tamara home. Yeah.
And they
Good
won't let her
memory
in.
for the name. It's an unusual name.
Yeah. But yeah, and I kind of thought, that sounds a little bit like Strangers. And then as it sort of went on, and, I was sort of thinking about Black-Eyed Children as well. But that's actually inspired by true events, but nothing to do with the Black-Eyed Children. But I kind of thought that, it's a little bit like that. But no, I don't really think there is any films.
In films, you get children appearing with like you said, ghostly eye, demonic eyes, black eyes, but not specifically about black-eyed children and the behaviour of them.
And that's the thing. It's a universal sign of evil. It's the eyes being the window to the soul.
The blackest eyes. The devil's eyes.
Exactly.
Devil's eye.
And as you know, Brett, I've got keen interest in the mafia and the history of that. And you often get people saying, oh, this guy, really sort of bad mafia hitman, and he's just got the dead eyes. And they really have. There's just no light in them. There's just nothing about them. They're like shark's eyes.
I was going to say, it's like a great white shark.
It is. And it's almost like if you do enough evil, you just it's reflected on your soul, which is in turn reflected through your eyes, and you just get these lifeless looking eyes. So it's just a universal thing, in it? The eyes are the window to the soul.
Well, it's like that. What is it? The 1,000-yard-mile stare, or whatever it's called.
War
from like the Vietnam War and stuff, where people just completely lost it because of the things that they saw, and like their eyes
almost
are just
dead inside,
aren't they? Because that's what that song Daniel,
of
Elton
course.
John, he sings, doesn't he? Your eyes have died, and it's all about that 1,000.
Because I always, for a long time, thought it was about
someone going blind.
Brother gone blind.
Yeah.
But it as you said, it's actually about the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Interesting. There's also a really good. I'm not going to say what it is because it'll spoil the entire premise. But there's a really good sort of vengeance film, and at the end, the main guy who's been getting vengeance is sitting in a church.
It's Batman, innit? It's Batman
and,
with the Joker in the cathedral. I knew it.
I could assure you it's not.
Oh.
And eventually, it's not a guessing game. I told you it'll spoil the whole concept. But eventually, the vicar or priest comes in the next morning and says, basically, I know you shouldn't be here. And then it turns out that all along this guy's just got these jet black eyes, and the vicar just didn't recognise him as such, but she recognised the evil that meant. And sort of she becomes really terrified and tells him to get out. But again, it's just another one of those things of evil eyes tend to suggest an evil persona, whether that's red eyes, jet black eyes, or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Originally, this will be the last thing I'll mention. There's a channel that I watch, and I particularly like them because they're always working very hard to debunk anything before they classify anything that they investigate as paranormal. Sometimes they do it that much they do my head in, to be quite honest. It's like they try too hard to debunk something, but they do get that feedback a lot. They register and recognise those types of comments in their videos. The channel's called Ghost Theory. I've recommended them a few times to you guys. I don't know if you've ever watched any of their stuff, but they actually did one on this episode, aired on the 3rd of November, and they went to where is it there? Either way, they went to there it is, the Four Crosses Inn in Caddick Chase. The home of the black-eyed children. And apparently at that inn, the Four Crosses Inn, there's been a lot of reports over the years of people seeing black-eyed children. And I think in that episode, they actually do recount one of those stories that someone had looked out the window to see a black-eyed child, and they ran out of the inn in such fear that they actually ran out into the road, which runs immediately outside. Like there's barely a footpath, and they ran out straight into traffic and were killed. Such was the fright of seeing this black-eyed child. So go and watch that episode. I'll send it.
Is that where we're staying on our little cheeky weekend away from it?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Well, on that front, if you had to debunk your story, what could you come up with? What would be your reasonable explanation for what happened?
Yeah, so actually that's a good question, because you know what, right? Up until that point when, Lee said it first, but up to that point when we said, that sounds a lot like black-eyed children, what was your reasoning? Because this happened quite a few, you're talking like, 4 or 5 years ago, aren't you? Yeah. So, and you've never told us that story before until then. Yeah. So it clearly never unsettled you enough that you felt like you had to share with it.
Family joke about it.
It's a family. It was just a family joke. It was a family joke. That, it was just like, oh, Ellie's going round again tonight. That sort of thing.
So how did you logically reason that scenario?
At the time, we just thought it was genuinely just a lost person who was just a little bit confused, but didn't sound distressed enough that needed help at the time. But then when we talked about it, the more I thought about it, the more you kind of recount the finer details, the more weird it got. That's the only way I can put it. It's just a person that was just genuinely lost walking around.
If that was the case, why would you think that they wouldn't approach any other tents? And worse still, that they'd actually just come back to yours eventually.
Can't explain it.
No, I didn't have any particular, like, you know, if I was looking at it through a purely sceptical lens, I haven't really got anything to pick up on.
No, same. I can't think of. Well, you know, we've obviously crossed all these conversation points and theories and everything else when we were talking about it earlier. But again, if this person was lost, they'd be banging on every tent.
Yeah.
And there'd be maybe, again, everyone reacts differently. Some people are able to stay calm in somewhat frightening situations. You know, people who are very good leaders are able to keep calm on the outside. You know, I mean, you have a stressful job, Lee, and, you know, you're able to find your calm in the most stressful and chaotic and may I dare even say it, dangerous situations, but you're able to steel your nerves. But I just kind of feel like even if all of that was the case and this person was able to stay somewhat calm, how did you not hear them knocking on anyone's tent? And why did they have no light? Even if they had the phone on them, why were they not using their light on the phone? Unless it was out of battery.
Teenagers, even 4 years ago, they've got a phone with a torch.
Yeah, very good point.
You know, but okay, well, maybe it ran out of battery. Yeah, but they were still able to manoeuvre enough to get round.
Even so, sending out your teen, like if Lily needed to go out to the bathroom, you know, you send her with a torch. Yeah. And even now at 16, I wouldn't send her on her own anyway. Not on a campsite when you've got loads of strangers around. Absolutely not. No.
And why was this person just not like, after you've been lost for a while and you've tried respectfully to try and find your way back and knock on people's tent and politely ask or whatever, why would you just not get to this point where you'd just be like, for fuck's sake, where am I? Will someone come out and help me? You know,
what time was it, roughly speaking?
About 10 o'clock?
Yeah, so
not late.
Not
horrifically
late.
It's not like uber late. It wasn't like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Most adults are going to be awake.
So it was just past that point of dusk where it was just dark.
People are there on the holidays.
Most people are going to be up, aren't they? So for you to shout, like you said earlier, Lee, probably the only people you're going to disturb are children who are very tired and are probably too young to be up at that point, which is no big deal because they'll just go straight back to fucking sleep. So, yeah, the whole thing's really weird. Really weird.
Yep. Yes, she was.
And forever she will remain.
Forever she will remain.
Okay then, folks. Well, there we have it. Another journey beyond the veil is done. But there are, of course, more things to know and learn about what lies beyond. As always, we are looking for your stories, just as Kat has shared hers tonight. If you have a story, not just about the black-eyed children, but any encounter you feel like you've had with the paranormal, no matter how big or small it is, you can share it with us. You can message us directly on Facebook and on Instagram, which is now being renamed, so I don't have to read out that ridiculous original podcast Instagram tag that we had before. It is now simply at Beyond the Veil, the podcast. So very easy and not with a million dots in it like it had before. And also we've given you a nice easier email if you'd prefer to email your stories to us. The email address now is BTV, as in Beyond the Veil, podcaststories@gmail.com. Nice and easy. So you don't have to put a million E's, I's, L's and everything else in it.
And like Kat's story shown as well, we'd be interested just to hear weird, unsettling things. Because Kat didn't recognise this as being particularly paranormal in any way. Yeah. And certainly not as a story about black-eyed kids.
Yes.
Whereas we can learn where these things are coming from, hopefully.
Exactly. So, you know, we kind of touched on that in the Halloween special as well, didn't we? Where we said, it's just something weird happened to you that you can't explain. Well, share it to us then, and we'll try and shed our thoughts on it, and maybe we can bring that into the light, just as we have potentially with Kat's story. So reach out to us. That's at Beyond the Veil, the podcast. That's on Instagram. It's just simply Beyond the Veil on Facebook. You can just message us directly on there or send us an email. You can send them anonymously if you'd prefer. That's absolutely fine. We will respect your privacy. We understand that some people aren't necessarily keen on divulging their identity when sharing these stories. People may feel a little silly or whatever, but we won't think that, but we will respect your need for anonymity if that's what you'd prefer. And I think for the time being, I think that's it. Is it not?
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah. So in the meantime then, I want to thank you, Kat, for joining us, of course.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
Would you like to join us on another episode sometime?
I have got a few things up my sleeve I could bring to the table.
Oh, like a magician. Excellent. Fantastic.
We're not discussing magic.
That's magic.
Not my stories, but stories that have been handed down from my granddad, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who was a lorry driver that used to do the runs to Scotland, and he encountered some very unusual things on his journeys up there.
Excellent.
And I used to enjoy sitting listening to his stories to no end. Some of them are funny, some of them are very explained, which just like sets the scene, but one of them in particular is quite unsettling.
Awesome. Compile them, and we will share them on a future episode.
My granddad, God rest his soul, he'll enjoy me telling his stories.
Brilliant. Oh, yeah. Well, wherever he is beyond the veil, hopefully he'll be listening. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, then. Well, if that's that, then it's goodbye from Kat.
Goodbye.
Goodbye from Lee.
Goodbye.
And goodbye from me. And remember, some truths aren't meant to be found, and some doors never truly close. And until next time, we'll be waiting just past the edge, beyond the veil.